Let's hear from the man in charge at Liverpool. Here's Jurgen Klopp.
Mikel Arteta, I think, showed in a very pretty short period of time that he seems to be an exceptional football manager, obviously, because the team he sets up now is the structure of the team is absolutely exceptional. You can see the balance between defense and offense is really good. You can see a lot of things which obviously are pretty helpful in football. Good organization, but freedom for the players as well, uses the players in the right position. So I have to say, since he's there, he did a pretty impressive job, to be honest, and changed, I think, the whole mood in the club. I'm not sure what I don't know exactly about what the mood was before he arrived, but I don't think a lot of people thought at the end of the season he will have won any competition or something like that, and he did that by winning the FA Cup and winning now the what is it, the English Super Cup. And so that's pretty impressive, I have to say. So it's a tough opponent, 100%.
So Jurgen Klopp giving credit to the job that Mikel Arteta has done since coming in at Arsenal. Is this Arsenal's first real test of the season, though, Glenn?
Oh, without any shadow of a doubt, yeah. No disrespect to the teams they've already played, but they do look better. They've got a nice balance to their team now. That defensively they were poor. Let's be honest. They had some firepower going forward. Of course they've had over the last few seasons, but you just felt as if they were going to concede and they were going to give goals away. You know, sometimes you get teams create against you. That's one thing. They've earned the right to score, but Arsenal were giving goals away left, right, and centre. He's tightened that up, and I think that's more of a unit. They've worked as a unit better rather than bringing just individuals in to shore it up. That's happened very quickly as a team. So they look a lot better, and I think this is going to be a hell of a game. I really do. They do struggle against Liverpool up there.
They do struggle. Listen, I think the mentality against the big 5 or 6 away from home over the last few years has been really poor. Now that's what they've got to get into their mentality. We can go there and get results.
They've just got to rein in that euphoria, really, that they've had in the early weeks of the season with, as Jurgen Klopp was saying, the FA Cup win, the Community Shield win, the re-signing of Aubameyang, which I think everyone 8 months ago probably thought wasn't possible, that he would probably go somewhere else to fulfil himself. But I think the results don't really tell the story, even 2 games into the season. I thought they were actually quite poor against West Ham. I thought West Ham, having struggled really mightily and had a lot of unrest behind the scenes, were better than them and could easily have nicked that game.
But is that the mentality change where games like that in previous years, they might have drew, but they've got over the line in a game where they've not played well in?
I think it's easier to say that when they've got away with a bit. Sometimes it's just luck. And say, for example, Gabriel, who's come into the team and scored his goal in the first game, I don't think has looked that convincing. And I mean, you know, there were good Premier League defenders who've really struggled at first. So I think we have to be realistic about that. But they did get away with this a little bit. I can understand why David Moyes was wringing his hands. I think when they go to Anfield, what's so important is not so much the result. If they lose to Liverpool, that's fine. Liverpool are the best team in the division and they're a lot better than them. It's really the manner. If they go up there and get belted in one of those bad old Arsenal performances that you were talking, then there's an issue. I think there becomes more of a we're putting the cart before the horse, and I think there is the danger of that a little bit at the moment. So I hope it's not a big reality check for them. But if they can go and give a creditable performance, I think then people will really believe Arsenal are starting to move in the right direction.
I think the setup will be. Arteta will know the setup will be defence. He's going to have to defend. Whether he plays Aubameyang out on that left-hand side, he's going to have to be tracking half the time. So the setup's going to be really, look, this is how we're going to play. He'll have the shield in front of a back 3 or even a back 4. We don't know which way they're going to go. They might go in with 5 at the back. But it'll be, can we hit them on the counter? We know Liverpool.
There's spacing behind for Liverpool.
Absolutely.
Isn't there spacing behind?
There is.
Pace.
I personally want to see them 2 up front. Like I said, and Aubameyang, I feel sorry for him actually, playing out on that left-hand side. Especially against Liverpool, he's going to end up as a left back half the time. So I think the shape he might go in with a 5 and get 3 in that midfield, make it solid, but keep them 2 up top to hit them on the break and use his pace. That would cause Liverpool a little bit of a problem on the counter.
All right, well, we're trying to guess what Arteta's going to do. Shall we hear from him now?
Yeah.
Let's hear from the Arsenal manager.
Well, I think they are getting better and better, and they have less weaknesses. They are a fantastic side. The issues with the weaknesses of opponent is how many times you are able to explode them and how many opportunities you get to do that. And as well with all the incredible things that they have, that they are going to try, they're still able to do them. So I want to focus on what we can do, what we have to do, and control our own aspects. We know the standards that they have set in this league, how consistent they've been, and that's because they dominate almost every aspect of the game. So we need to be at our best. We need to compete really well against this team, and hopefully the boys are ready to do that on Monday. Obviously, when you talk about Liverpool, that challenge is much bigger, but I just want to focus on Monday. Let's try to get the best possible preparation against them, go there and most importantly, have the belief that we can go there and win. And we all have to believe that we are capable of doing that.
Well, we've talked about how Arsenal's defence are going to manage, but how are Liverpool's defence going to manage against Arsenal's forward players, Andy?
Well, I think Glenn's point was a really interesting one about how Aubameyang is going to have to plough that far up the left. I think he will, and in an attacking sense as well. It's a really interesting one about how Aubameyang is going to have to plough that far up the left. I think he will, and in an attacking sense as well, because if Leeds showed us anything in that first game of the season, the space against Liverpool is behind those fullbacks. And it seems really, when you say it out loud, it's obvious because Alexander-Arnold and Robertson are so adventurous, aren't they? But that was something really they didn't seem to be able to cope with Leeds. But I think Leeds can really set the tone for a lot of teams because I got the impression that Liverpool were a little bit casual in that. They're not used to being pressed that much. Now, one thing that Arteta has really taught Arsenal to do is how to play without the ball. And that's something that they've not been particularly good at, I think, in recent years and since the back end of the Wenger era. But can they dare to give Liverpool something to think about in the other half as well? Because that's going to take guts.
Very interesting.
I think where Liverpool now, we talk about Thiago. In games when Liverpool are going to have majority of possession, we know the dynamic three in midfield, whether it be Wijnaldum, Henderson, Fabinho, Keita. Thiago adds something different to him, doesn't he? When they've got all the ball, somebody can pick that little pass.
He's such a good passer of the ball, and he never gives the ball away. To press him, you've got to be in his shorts, literally, to get his head down, because he plays with his head up so easy. But the good thing about him, you get players like that keep it simple, and the game looks simple when he's in possession of the ball. But he has got that ball that hurts you. He can play in behind. And if that movement that Liverpool have, those front three with Mane coming in he'll pick those passes. I think it's a wonderful buy. It really is for Liverpool. I'm looking at them thinking, do they need to improve that squad? My word, they've bought the right player at the right time.
And it's a different signing as well, isn't it, for Jurgen Klopp, Glenn? Because, Andy, what we've seen from Jurgen Klopp in the past is he tends to buy players that he can develop and that he can coach into his team, whereas with Thiago, what they've got is a ready-made all-round package. Yeah,
I mean, they're at a different stage. As Glenn says, it's so hard to know how to improve Liverpool at the moment, and it's a kind of dangerous moment because it's the easiest point at which to rest on your laurels. If you're looking at your team and thinking, well, as I've said before, Liverpool are going to reach a point, I think, in the next year or so where they're going to have to make some difficult decisions. They're going to have to get rid of some really loved players because ultimately you have to develop a team. You can't just pin happiness to the wall. You have to work on it, don't you? But Thiago, I think, is an excellent option to do that. I think in this sort of gush of praise for him as he's arrived, and he is a wonderful footballer to watch, there needs to be some recognition that he's 29 years old, only twice in his career, which has had quite a lot of injuries in it, as he played more than 20 league games in a season. You cannot flog him every week in the Premier League. For a game like this, yes, he has to play. I think that's very important.
Will he start this week, do you think?
I think he should, but I think they should pick really carefully the games that he should start. There shouldn't be an expectation that he's going to start like 45, 50 games this season.
I do think that he's played in a club at Bayern where they've had the ball most of the time.
Yeah.
He's going to have the ball at Liverpool. So that working, and when you haven't got the ball, Rob, we understand, we always know the mentality of trying to win a ball back, it fatigues you much more. When you've got the ball, and he's had that for 2 or 3 seasons, I think 29, I think there's still a good 4 years left of him, really good 4 years. And I think the player doesn't hit his peak till he's 29 anyway. So I think Liverpool, it's absolute spot on buy for me, there'll be people chasing him all day long trying to get the ball off him because he keeps the ball so well.
I must have never got to 29.
Robbie. Do you think with Thiago he could be the player, the addition to this Liverpool squad that is the difference in them retaining the title, Glenn?
Yes, I do. It's very difficult to win the Premier League back to back, and with this player coming in, I think they've given themselves every chance. I just noticed that I think he's out for the weekend, but Oxlade-Chamberlain for me is another one, gives him a different dimension. He needs to stay fit, and if there's goals in him and creation from him in a different way than any of the other players in that midfield area. So I think if they keep him fit as well, he's almost like a new player coming in as well, and I think Liverpool can go and win it again this year.
What about Liverpool's front three then, Andy, up against Arsenal's defence? They could cause some trouble, couldn't they?
Yeah, and we talked about how Arsenal had their difficulties last weekend. It's a really steep learning curve for Gabriel, I think, because obviously he's proved himself in top flight in France, and he's been very, very good there. But I think the Premier League, it's a shock to a lot of players. It's a shock to a lot of defenders. And I remember Patrice Evra gave that interview in the summer, didn't he, where he was talking to Donald McRae about how after his debut away at Manchester City, he got dragged off after 45 minutes. And he said to his agent, "What do you think?" He said, "Well, I think you've made a mistake, but it's a bit late now, isn't it?" And, a player like that who turned into a club legend and turned into a Premier League legend, I think that shows how difficult it can be. And Liverpool's front three, then it's not just that they're three incredible forwards. They're perfectly complementary. They've all got different skill sets. They fit together so brilliantly. And they're just relentless as well. I mean, you saw that in the manner of the goals at Chelsea last weekend, I thought, as well.